Like, this is why I shouldn't record these things right after I take a shower, because then my hair is all flat and doesn't work. But anyway, hi, I'm CCYamato. It's time for episode 14 of Cardcaptor Sakura. This is the zoo episode. Rather, it's not so much that they go to a zoo, but apparently everyone's going to turn into animals, which, as I covered last week, that's a personal phobia of mine. So this episode sounds like it's going to be really rough. I'm going to hope that Clamp can make it easy on my sensitive soul. But anyway, I'm playing it up a bit. But I'm looking forward to it. This is going to give me a second chance to really kind of look at the new opening and closing. And because I was kind of meh on them last week, so who knows, maybe this time I'll get a little more feel out of them. But let's find out. If you'll indulge me, I'd like to use a visual metaphor for how I feel about this episode. I'm a bit torn. On the one hand, this was really good. Like, the scene where they're in Mirage's world, and this is what was all over Tumblr, like, the scene with Sakura and Shaoran is really good. It's a good character moment for them where, like, Sakura's freaking out and Shaoran comes in to save the day and help her calm down and figure out the solution to the problem, but it's also like, it makes me feel like Sakura is a weaker character for it. It's been 3 years in the narrative timeline. Sakura has captured a deck of cards and transformed a deck of cards. She's had to solve so many things. So on the one hand, she's 12. So it makes sense that she's easily flustered and gets panicked and worked up and overrun. On the other hand, it's like, I feel like at this point she should have developed more. And maybe this is a shoujo thing, where being a male, maybe I don't get the whole I want a man to come in and save me sort of thing, which I don't think is where media is going. But maybe for shoujo manga, that is exactly what the female audience wants. So for me, I feel like, even though it's a great scene, I feel like this sort of thing sets Sakura up to be a weaker character because I just expect her to be stronger after all this time. That being said, the final scene where she's saying she wants to be stronger because she realizes how unprepared she was or how easily worked up she was that she wants to improve herself, that is at least a moment of character development. Whether or not it sticks, I don't know. So, boy, that's a great opening. What happens in this episode is that Sakura goes to the Tsukimine Shrine with the entire cast, and they all start turning into animals. And they don't actually turn into animals, it's all a mirage. It's all an illusion, which is, I guess, what Mirage would be based off of. Like, if we're still going by the convention that the clear cards are based off of the old cloud cards, then Mirage would be based off illusion, which is interesting that this card is fundamentally based on a cloud card, yet is appearing in the anime first. There is no Mirage card in the manga. So that's interesting. I do like this card. This Mirage card appears to be able to just make worlds inside itself and suck people into them. And the world that it makes it's simple. It's just a grassland with the earth and the moon above it, but it looks cool. It's a very surreal world. The people turning into animals thing is explained where it's just like Mirage was just latching onto Sakura and making a world based on what she wanted, so to speak. So she wanted to see animals. It's turning people into animals. Funny thing though, last week Mei-Ling was turning into a cat, and I don't remember any mention of a zoo. I don't even think they mentioned cats much. So, a little bit of a cheat in the narrative, if you want to go with that. But yeah, after that, Shaoran busts into the world in an awesome sequence where he actually manages to cast time despite no longer having a time card. And it just cuts right through there, and of course he's completely useless afterwards because he is still the tuxedo mask of this series, so he's Captain Ineffectual Man. and gives Sakura the pep talk she needs to solve the crisis, which is really just to wish really hard. Can you see why I used the torn metaphor here? I don't know how I feel about this episode. I want to talk about some of the things that I'm definitely sure of, or at least the theories that I want to make. We start this episode with Shaoran doing some magics with the Rashinban, and we see that he's crystallizing magic or spells. It's nice. I like this sequence where we find out later that it appears that this is the thing that he's casting. These little marbles that he makes on the board. So in the Hail episode, he cast a fire spell, which may have been reminiscent of Fiery. And in this time, he cast a time spell. Whether or not it's based off the same kind of cloud magic or whatever, we don't know if those things are single use. But yeah, those little marbles are his new variety of spell. And we don't know if that's what he's also using in the manga, but since in the manga we haven't really seen marbles, we've seen him use cards. This seems to be a point where the manga and the anime are diverging considerably. Because now the manga hasn't explained where his magic is coming from, and the anime is going ahead and saying, no, he's basically making spells based off of cloud magic. Which, given that he's a descendant of cloud, it makes sense that his magic would be somewhat based off that. Some other things that were fun in this episode, Yamazaki calls out the fact that he can't get a good story in because fate just seems to be screwing him. And I'm okay with that, Fate. You keep that up, because the Yamazaki thing is getting old. And there's a time and a place for everything, but it wasn't in this episode, so yeah, I'm totally... He gets like 3 or 4 stories started, and by the end, the show is just kind of giving up and letting him tell his stories in the background. Yeah, we don't get to see them, and frankly, I don't miss them. I think it's fun to evolve the joke in this way so that he no longer gets to tell his stories. It's just kind of falling apart. I talked about Mirage already, but let me talk about it a little more. The card is a fish. The card is a fish. I don't know what that has to do with a mirage. If it had been like a desert in a palm tree or something, like that would make sense. But why is it a fish? There's got to be some cultural thing to that. Like, but the actual card itself, when it showed up in the world, it was just this glowing ball. Maybe like a fish ball, but yeah, the card itself, the artwork is a fish. These anime-only cards are really weird. Like, you've got Gravitation, where it's a sun and a moon with arrows pointing them out, even though gravity, they should be going in. And then you've got Reversal, which is just a rock and then an inverse of the rock. And then you got Hail. Hail is pretty simple. It's just hail balls. But now Mirage is a fish. I don't get it. So the next episode, we're going back to Tomoyo's house again, which is really not something that's a bad thing, because I love going back there. And we're going to see possibly a clip show that we were promised. I hope not. I was almost convinced we just weren't going to get that clip show, but we're going to at least see the play. And since they're bringing Akiho, I think that's really more what the story is, that they're just going to show some of the play. And yeah, it makes me wonder, like, we've been going back and forth about whether or not the second movie is canon or not because of little things like, Ariel's house was destroyed in the second movie, but now it's back because Akiho's living in it. So I've always just kind of written it off as like, okay, the movie is canon, but some of the finer details don't count. Now I'm wondering if we're opening up this idea that the second movie will be retold a little bit with some minor edits. But I don't think we're going to get a full episode out of that. But at the very least, we're going to get part with Sonomi again, so that'll be fun. And we'll get to see Akiho show up at Tomoyo's house, so we'll have one rich girl showing up at another rich girl's house. So who knows, maybe there'll be some fun dialogue with that. But considering that it's Tomoyo and Akiho and they're not really comedy characters, I think I'm getting my hopes up a little too more. But that's it. That's episode 14. The only other thing that I want to do for this episode... Every week I complain about the animation being lazy, and instead of being nitpicky about the scenes in general, I'm just gonna do a quick rapid fire of just the cringiest scenes. So let's have a look at them. boy, they really can't get Sakura's eyes just the right color in these distance shots, can they? I didn't really want to end an episode on a low note, but hey, I figured it would be a fun thing to try. So come back next week for episode 15, and I'm going to be working on the chapter 22 episode. I think we're up to chapter 22. Anyway, new chapter video coming out soon. I'll see you next week. Bye. One last thing, because I didn't notice it the first time I watched the episode, it looks like Mei Ling is going to be in the next episode too. I don't know how long she's going to stay. I haven't seen any press stuff, but we got her for at least 3 episodes, maybe even 4. Who knows anymore? I thought she was going to go away, but I mean, I'm not anti-Mei Ling or anything. I just am surprised she's here for this long. That's, I guess, all I can say about it. So, for real this time, thanks for watching. Remember to follow me on Twitter, CCYamato, link in the description. I'll see you next week. Goodbye.